say hi right off the top here. My name is Jackson Sylvanik. My role here is I'm the managing editor of our commercial cleaning group here at Trade Press Media. We want to thank you sincerely for joining us for the first module of this what we're calling it the CleanLink Operational Excellence series. We're really excited to have you. We think this is going to be of great use and of great interest, timely. Um, Make sure to stick around at the end to get the information on the following modules. You'll want to be part of that. Today, we're bringing you our presenter, Stanley Quentin Hewlin. He's the president and CEO of Future Facility Technology, Inc. He's been a member of the cleaning industry since 1975. He's got over 4 decades of cleaning industry-related experience with services, training, sales, marketing, management experience, the whole shebang. As president and CEO of Future Floor Technology, Inc., he's designed and implemented cleaning and maintenance programs for BSCs such as American Building Maintenance, DuPont Flooring Systems, Millicare Carpet, many countless independent contractors. As a national and international consultant, he has conducted cleaning and hard floor maintenance seminars throughout the United States, as well as the Netherlands, France, Belgium, Egypt, Japan. Most recently, he's acted as a consultant for government bodies to evaluate and develop comprehensive cleaning programs, as well as work with the cleaning companies that service them. So for today's webcast, our learning objectives are going to include discovering practical strategies for driving cost efficiency in your cleaning operations, learning how to effectively manage costs while maintaining high service levels, proper staffing, and good hygiene. We're going to discuss key topics that include optimizing productivity, establishing accurate frequency and labor formulas, and maintaining health and cleanliness standards. We're also going to look at options to adjust cleaning specifications and schedules to create savings and maintain the bottom line. Very important as we approach 2025. Before we get started with today's event, a couple of housekeeping things to keep in mind. We do absolutely encourage questions and participation throughout the entire webinar. To submit questions as they come to you, there will be a Q&A Ask Questions module. You should see it at the bottom of your screen, a little arrow to expand it and minimize it. You can type your question in at any time, send that in. We'll keep track. We'll have a Q&A at the end. We'll touch on some of these things. You'll also be able to download a PDF of today's presentation, the slides, by navigating to the related content module that you can find on your screen as well. And if you've not registered for parts 2 or 3, you can go ahead and do that. There's a link also in that related content module on your screen. You can go ahead and get that knocked out. And remember, to receive your CEU certificate, you have to hang around for the entire webcast. And you can submit for the credit and download a certificate by clicking on the View Certificate in the Earn Certificate module that should be on the right of your screen. We're also going to archive this webcast if you want to revisit it later. There are some parts that you want to double check. That'll be on cleanlink.com/webcasts. With that, I'll hand it over to Stan to take it away.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Stan Hewlin, and I've been asked to deliver this better budgeting presentation so that we might have a better understanding of where we are. I'll just go ahead and see if I can hit the button here. Okay, so we've already talked about what the learning objectives are. Jackson, thank you for taking care of that. And we also did a little bit of presentation about myself. So I'm going to dive right into this. It's a tight presentation. And before we get into how do you strategically plan to cover events that are as yet unseen, it requires doing a little thought process. So before you ever sign a contract, a lot of times we're a part of the proposal and agreement or the request for proposal. Sometimes we just inherited a contract and we have to deal with it from that perspective. So I did a presentation at the Clean World or Clean Building Conference last week, and the presentation was about the assessment criteria that we should all look at before we sign a contract and evaluate, before we even put in our proposal, what those things and what they are and how they impact our our proposal. In this presentation, we're going to see the direct results of manipulating this criteria to try and either bring it on budget or reduce it in some form or fashion. So we always start with the client's objective. What are they asking for? And there are three primary things that we need to deal with in terms of communication with the potential customer. And those three things are definitions of terminology. We should be speaking the same language if we're going to communicate this program. And then we need to have a scope of services that the customer understands. They fall into the terminology and what we perform. And the final thing are the performance standards or the expectations of end results. Once you go through those three things with the customer, you should be able to define some of this. Throughout this presentation, we're going to relate to environmental conditions, whether it's geologic, geographic, or interior environment. They impact the dirt and soil that gets into the building. So we look at that. We're going to talk a little bit about how traffic conditions influence how the frequency of what you're doing and how you're doing it. We've talked about a little bit about congestion and how congestion impacts it. And there are three types of congestion that was talked about in the previous session. And those are the physical congestion, the area congestion, how it's broken up, and personnel congestion, who's there. We also talked a little bit about time factors and how time factors can be obstacles in the way of completing the task. And finally, we discussed the budget. All of these 6 criteria should have been gone through with the customer prior to even signing the contract. But guess what? That doesn't always happen. So I just want you to be aware that 6 criteria will be developed throughout this presentation and showing you areas that we might be able to get a little bit of wiggle room or strategically plan something. So let's talk about the players first. First, you have the property manager, and then you have the building service provider. So the property manager is responsible for protecting the building, but guess what? So is the building service provider. They both have a shared interest in providing the best service for that building. The property manager is the manager of the cleaning contract. He's the one who's going, he, she, or whoever is there is going to manage that cleaning contract. And the building service provider is going to be the recipient. They're going to hold on to that contract and meet the obligations. The property manager is financially responsible for the contractual remuneration. Simply put, that means they're responsible to pay you for your services. Contractually, or the building service provider is contractually responsible for the service delivery. They're in order to get paid, they have to meet the cleaning requirements of the contract. The property manager monitors the building service provider's deliverables. Are they delivering the product? Occasionally, we'll have joint inspections with the property managers to make sure that they are comfortable with the delivery. The building service provider manages the cleaning program and all service delivery. That person is responsible for making sure that the customer is getting what they paid for. Finally, the property manager is accountable for maintaining the cleaning contract within their structure, whereas the building service provider is accountable for retaining that cleaning customer for them. So on both sides of this coin, both the property manager and the building service provider are providing a very serious service for what? The building. So I want to point out the fact that oftentimes most of the time, I don't really represent the property manager or the building provider. I represent what does the building need to be a clean and habitable environment. And that's what we need to look at. As we set if we've done this correctly, we've set up the contract to meet those requirements. If we have not, that's when we have to start changing it up a little bit and maybe doing a few things that will align the budget and make it work. So we're going to talk about developing practical strategies, and this is for how do you drive cost efficiency in the cleaning operations. There's a lot of way to get to efficiency, and we're going to talk about those efficiencies directly. So the first thing we have to talk about is the operation. Is it an effective operation, or is it an efficient operation? So a good friend of mine, Mark Warner, always tells me his daughter can clean her room, but it may take her all day to do it. So maybe she was effective in cleaning her room, but how efficient was she, really? So I start with definitions because words are there for a reason. Effective is defined as to produce a desired result or intended result, or to work well and achieve a successful outcome. Efficiency, on the other hand, is achieving those desired results with the least amount of wasted time, effort, resources, or energy. So the last part of that says wasted time, effort, resources, or energy. So that's where we can make those savings, is by reducing any of those practical things. So before we can even begin, we have to define clean. What is clean? How do we establish what is clean? If your customer comes to you and they say, clean my building 5 days a week, we look at the definition of clean. Does that mean that building is going to be free from dirt, marks, and stains forever after we've done it? Absolutely not. If you look at these 4 definitions, they all come from different dictionaries, but the bottom line is, if you're looking at clean, you're looking at free from dirt. And so you can clean a building and it'll be free from dirt, but for how long? And do you really clean it to a different level? There are different levels of cleanliness, which is what we're really talking about, is not to clean the building, but to clean the building to an acceptable level of cleanliness. And so when we talk about cleaning a building and that acceptable level of cleanliness, we're really talking about what environment are you in? Because the environment, whether it's external environment or internal environment, talks to you about the building, is letting you know what kind of dirt is in that building, what kind of external soil might be encroaching into the building, and what kind of internal dirt and soil is generated from inside. So when we look at the general environments, we talked a little bit about environments on that beginning slide. We're talking about commercial environments, industrial environments, healthcare environments, education environments, and transportation environments. And there are plenty others that are in the list, 13 of them. But for these, I'm going to just use these. And if you would look at healthcare, would probably be the highest level of cleanliness in the group here. You would want a healthcare facility to be much more clean than, say, a commercial facility, which is much more clean than maybe an industrial facility. So as you look at the different environments that you're working in, there may be a lower level of acceptance because of the magnitude and types of dirt and soil that are in that environment. So you have to accept that the acceptable level of cleanliness to maintain. Once you establish what that level of cleanliness to maintain is, then you can start looking at how do I achieve this? How do I stay within my budget and still provide the customer with the satisfaction they're looking for? So we do this by adjusting frequencies a lot of time. So in order to understand that, how to adjust a frequency, you got to know what those frequencies are. We start with initial cleaning, which very few people actually do initial cleaning, because initial cleaning is directly after building the building. It's when everything is new in it, and that's the first time it's ever been cleaned. And there's a reason that it's difficult, because you're trying to make new products look used, whereas when you're doing regular cleaning, you're trying to make used products look new. So what we often fall into is what's called an initial restorative. If you get a brand new account, you may go in there and do a really, really good job on cleaning that initially, because you really want that wow factor for the new customer to say, wow, I can really see a difference here. And it's really, it's an improvement, or it might be, we can't hire these guys if you do a really poor job. So those are the two initial things that you might initially start your cleaning program on. Then you're going to go to your daily routine tasks, and those daily routine tasks are going to be performed 1 to 7 days per week, or it might be weekly, or even every other week. It's going to be contingent on the size of the contract and what the customer is asking for. So then we jump to periodic or interim kind of services, and periodic services are used generally for janitorial and floor maintenance, whereas interim is a term that is usually referred to in carpet maintenance. But they are essentially kind of interchangeable with slight definition changes. So when we're talking about periodic, it's those things like maybe you do high dusting once a month. Maybe you do low dusting once a month. Maybe you clean the stairwell once a week. There's periodic times that we're going to hit things. When you get into carpet maintenance and floor maintenance and window cleaning, it might be quarterly, or it might be triannually, 3 times a year, or it might even be semi-annual. So those, understanding that the periodic and interim time frames are larger than 1 month. And then you get into your restorative, which is kind of trying to do that deep cleaning and get it back to its original condition. And that might be annually or biennially, which is 2 times a year, or triennial, or every 2 years, or triennially, which would be every 3 years. So understanding that when you're building your program, you're going to be maybe modifying some of these frequencies, which is why I show you that. So when we get into the actual altering of the contract, we know the terminology we're using. So we do know that when we are talking about defining the cleaning program budget, the budget includes everything from supplies to taxes and administrative costs and all of that. But the biggest cost is labor. In terms of actually physically doing the job. So one of the things that we talk about is the labor involved. How are your cleaning technicians? They're going to, the cleaning technicians that you use in each of these different methods or cleaning things is they're not all going to be the same. Some of them are going to be trained better than others, and that kind of thing. So the cleaning technicians don't hit a set of frequencies or efficiencies in cleaning until they've been trained and they've done it for a while. So understand that just because we're looking at the requirements, the labor requirements, we need to understand that those requirements are variables. They change a little bit based on the individual. So what causes those changes in the amount of what we pay a person? A probationary technician is going to be there, and they're going to have 0 to 90 days of experience, and they're going to be trying to figure out how to fill out their time card and get paid. That's kind of where their focus is, and at the same time, they're learning a little bit of the process as well. Now that's based on everybody could be a probationary technician coming in regardless of their experience, but on a probationary technician that has no experience, 0 to 90 days just to get them in the saddle. Then they'll roll into like an apprenticeship technician, and that's going to last 90 to 365 days. It takes about a year to get somebody settled into performing cleaning tasks in a decent way. So after about a year to 2 years, you'll be in the journeyman category, and your skill efficiency is going to be much better once you get to a journeyman. You'll be able to go out there and you know how to do things in a manner that's not only effective but efficient as well. As you go into the higher grades, like senior technician, which is 3 to 5 years experience, they're going to be able to go out there and solve problems that come up. They may be supervisors and managers. You get to the craftsman and master craftsman layer, where you're 5 to 10 years in experience. That means you've done a lot of good jobs, or you've done a lot of jobs, and therefore you'll have an insight on how to solve problems that occur in the field. So at each of these levels, we find better efficiency because of time and experience in doing the job. You can't get that on paper. You can't get that in class. Experience is experience, and it's what really changes the pay rates. However, based on pay rates, you should always be charging for the maximum pay rate that you will be paying. And you can make the minor adjustments that will be efficient and strategically planned. You might put a journeyman with a probationary technician or an assistant, and it'll balance out. So it's important to understand the skill set, experience, and efficiency does play in the game. So estimates are not facts until they are completed. And that's why we always put in estimates and not facts. So janitorial facts are going to come from the customer. The janitorial facts are, I want this building cleaned 5 times per week. I want it done Monday through Friday. I want it done between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Those are facts that we mold our cleaning program around. When we talk about specialty service facts, we're talking about hard floor maintenance, carpet maintenance, and windows. They're going to have facts, scheduled frequencies, or scheduled services. These are the services we're going to do. These are the frequencies we're going to do them in. And we're going to make sure that you're happy with our services, because we have a quality assurance package that we should be inspecting with the customer after these specialty services are done. On the other side, we're looking at janitorial estimates. And those are, how long does it take to complete the task? Well, it may take longer for an inexperienced person than an experienced person. So we have to kind of balance how the hours to complete, because there is no set fact that says you can do this in X amount of time. So that's kind of an estimate that you hope to hit, or even underestimate and get it done. So we also have to deal with staffing on hand. We could say we're going to have a full staff on the building, but that doesn't always work out, because you're not always have a full staff. People call in sick. People go on vacation. The economy doesn't make for having people available all the time. So that'll have an impact. And then an estimate is on salary and wage rate. How much are you paying those guys? As I said earlier, when you're calculating your costs, you always want to calculate based on the journeyman wages, and that gives you kind of a balance. And then you have emergency situations. These all fall into those time constraints that I was talking about earlier. Emergency situation. Well, if you're driving to work and you get in a wreck, what if you're in the customer or in your boss's car or van and you get in a wreck? That's an emergency situation. There are no contingency plans for that. That is just stuff that happens. Emergency situation. It has an ungodly blizzard overnight. You're not prepared for that. Those are things that you can't deal with. In the specialty services, again, or you come down to the fact, well, maybe your company's not big enough to do floor maintenance or carpet cleaning or window cleaning. Are you going to contract that out? Or are you going to subcontract it? How are you going to do that and still satisfy the contract to the customer? What are your periodic and restorative services? What's the difference between the two? Sometimes you have to explain that to the customer, because all they know is, well, you're just going to scrub and recoat. Well, you have to explain them to it. And once you explain to the customer what the difference between a scrub and recoat and a strip and refinish is, they get it. But if you just say, I'll scrub and recoat or I'll strip and refinish, there is no correlation that they know unless they're into the business. And when it comes to floor maintenance, carpet cleaning, and window cleaning, because they are less frequent than 5 days a week, you can't cover it up. You have to establish those delivery dates, and you have to hit those delivery dates. And then you have to have the supervisor or manager go through and do an inspection to make sure that it was done on time and done correctly. So at each time, each process, we have to understand that it's an estimate or it's a fact. So first we take the facts. This is a factual contract, and in this contract we have the services are going to be performed 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, between 9 and 6. And we have to hit all of these areas, the common areas, the office areas, the non-applicable areas, additional areas are what we are lined out in our contract. And as you can see, this one's pretty easy to read. You're going to work Monday through Friday. The X's are there. And in the left-hand category, you can see exactly what you're going to be doing. Very simple feed, and you can track this relatively easy, and you can create an inspection card that follows this exactly the same way. So when we talk a little bit about common areas, office areas, non-applicable areas, and security areas, when we identify those areas and we break them up, I like using color-coded floor plans because it's a quick visual that shows you exactly what we're talking about. In this particular building, all of the yellow areas are public areas, and they're used by most of the people that come into the building. So those are called common areas. Then we have the office areas, which are the green areas that are usually covered by staff and employees, and it's not open to everybody in the building. It might be private offices, it might be meeting rooms, but it's all relegated to the staff. Non-applicable areas like mechanical areas and elevator shafts and that kind of stuff will show up as gray. We don't have any on this, but those are areas that the cleaning technician really doesn't need to worry about. Maybe on a very rare occasion, they may ask to have services there. And then if you get into more complex things, where you have larger commercial buildings, they may have an IT data center, and that's going to be off hands, or they may have, you might be at a police station or a courtroom that has holding cells, and those are going to have special attention, or they're going to have to be done during security. So we always want to leave that door open for additional tasks and security such. Now we get into the hard floor maintenance, and as you're laying out your hard floor maintenance schedules, it's important to understand that hard floor maintenance is different than carpet maintenance. Carpets are very limited in the fibers they use, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But hard floors have 6 categories and who knows how many classifications. And so those the categories are very broad in the sense of stone floors are stone floors, wood floors are wood floors, resilient, clay-based are clay-based, and then you might have specialty floors. So it's important to understand, concrete floors are in there as well. So those are the 6 categories, and within those categories are classifications. Like granite is different than marble, and marble is different than slate, or softwoods are different than hardwoods and may be treated differently, or slate or ceramic tiles are different than porcelain tiles, and porcelain tiles are different than quarry tiles. So being able to identify those floors can really be helpful in streamlining the operation, because you know exactly what you need to take and how to deal with it. So when you're dealing with hard floor maintenance, which is by far the most difficult to deal with because of the categories and classifications. You then lay it out in this particular floor plan. You can see that we've identified the floors with different colors. In this case, we've got the light gray colors are the polished concrete. The pink color is the epoxy flooring material, which is a resilient category. And the tan or beige looking colors are LVT. So by identifying each of those different types of floors, we know what we need to take into that account, and we can estimate about how long it's going to take to do it. So in all of these cases, it's just scrub and rinse and scrub and deep scrub and rinse. If it were like VCT, if that beige area were VCT, you might have to incorporate scrub and recoat and strip and refinish. The point is that this is an easy variable to be able to see things. Then we get into the carpet cleaning. Carpet is based on traffic. Carpet is, if you have heavy traffic conditions, moderate traffic conditions, or light traffic conditions, is going to dictate the frequency of doing it. In this particular case, the heavy traffic conditions, which are all entryways, are actually going to be extracted once a quarter. Then on the moderate traffic areas, we're going to extract it once a year, and then 3 times a year, we're going to use some form of low moisture cleaning. And in the light traffic areas, we'll do it one time a year with the rest of it. So we're making it efficient by lining up the periodic and restorative services. Then we get into, this is the carpet of that same facility. You can see that the entryways identified in yellow are all entryways. That's why they need to be extracted once a quarter. The blue areas are the moderate areas, and those moderate areas might require low moisture cleaning at an interim between the extraction, and extract it once a year. The green areas are just going to be extracted. There is no low moisture cleaning. Of course, you can adjust those to any way you want, but this is kind of one of the most efficient carpet cleaning programs that you'll encounter. So once you have the task sheet, the task sheet is on the left, which covers all of your it's a 30,000 foot view of all of the services that you're going to perform in that building. Well, that building may be a 100-story high rise, or it may be a 2,500 square foot low rise. Doesn't matter. It has to be transferred into the individual route sheets or job cards to be able to identify what each individual is going to be doing to meet the obligations of that contract. So by looking at all of the 30,000 foot level, we can now break that down into the individual route sheets that are applicable to get the job done. So when we look at the route cards in the janitorial environment, we're looking at 3 different types of cleaning are really essential. In the cleaning industry, there are 3 more after that, but the ones that we use the most are zone cleaning. That might be a small account that one person can clean, or maybe you assign a person a floor in a high account. It's one way to get it done, but it requires that the cleaning technician absolutely knows every aspect of what they're doing, which isn't always the case. A lot of times we may have team cleaning, which could be 2, 4, or even more people that are assigned in a team, and each one of those team members has a specialty task. Like one team member may be really good at cleaning bathrooms, but they really suck on doing floors. So they're assigned to doing the sinks and toilets and everything in the bathroom, and somebody else comes in and does the floors after that. Maybe somebody does carpets really well. Maybe you've got an exclusive carpet vacuuming. Maybe you have somebody who just goes through the building and dumps the trash and recyclables and changes those liners. That's the team cleaning method, and in large buildings, that can be like one of the most efficient and effective methods of getting the job done in a very efficient phase. So the final one that I talk about is gang cleaning. Gang cleaning is just like it says. You put a gang of people on it and you go knock it out. Oftentimes, this is used in an area where you have a short period time frame to get the job done, such as like the entertainment environment, where say you have a rock concert or a ball game, and you have to go in and clean in between that show and the next show. One person can't do that. You have to bring in a whole team or a gang of people to knock that out. Another good example of team cleaning is construction cleaning. When after a building's built and you're on the initial cleaning phase, your job is to go in there and make all of that new stuff look old, look like it's been there for a while. And that's construction cleaning. Then you have your specialty services, which are going to use the same methods above, which are hard floor maintenance, carpet cleaning, and window cleaning. So all of these, how do you use your personnel to the most effective and efficient way to achieve the desired result? So we get into effectively managing costs. So this gets into cleaning provision and personnel. One, you got to purchase the stuff, and then you got to teach the people how to use the stuff or hire people that know how to do it. So again, we go back to plan your work and work your plan. One of the most important things that you need to understand is that the whole thing is about providing service procedures. The service procedure is to clean the building. The process, or the service process is to clean the building. The service procedures are how do you accomplish that task, each individual one. In order to do that, you have to have a basic understanding of the size of the areas, how much square footage are you going to be dealing with. Then you have to how big are the crews you're going to be working with. Where's the location of the service area you're going to be dealing with? If you're a floor maintenance guy or a carpet cleaning guy, you're not cleaning the whole building. Where is it in relation to the cleaning provision area? And that cleaning provision area is home base to everything we do. It's where all our supplies, all our provisions are stored at. So we really need to know where that is and how many steps does it take to get from point A to point B. So it's important to understand where in the cleaning provision area. The other thing that's important about provisions is how do you transport them? Do you transport them in a van? Do you transport them on a cart? Do you transport them on a sled or just a pull cart? How do you do that? The thing that we often overlook on proficiency is the water source. Where is the water source? You can run through a building and find it difficult to find out where the water source is, and then the water pressure at that water source is also an issue. Then we have to consider safety. Well, how do we safely deal with this account? And then security. We want to make sure that everything is secure. So all of those things had to be taken into consideration when you're planning your work. The cleaning provision area itself, we don't call them janitorial closets. As a friend of mine says, a janitorial closet is somewhere you hang your coat. What we're talking about is we have to keep all of our cleaning provisions in an area for the entire building, and oftentimes that area is no bigger than a closet. So I got the name janitor closet. Oftentimes it's whatever's left over after the architects are done. It's important to understand that janitorial or cleaning provision areas are not what they used to be. They should be in a preferred location, centralized and near a source of water. There should be size requirements for the types and sizes of equipment that you're going to be dealing with. They should have doorways and doors that your equipment can fit through. Oftentimes you see a lot of equipment that's outside the cleaning area or the cleaning provision area and plugged in running under the door. So just because it couldn't fit through the door, it needs to have adequate lighting. It has to have adequate electrical inside. It should have good shelving requirements, and the floor surface should be a permeable floor surface that is repellent to water. You also might want to consider, are you using it for a wet provision area? You're using it for a dry provision area? Do you need to incorporate it as a custodial office as well? So all of those things need to be considered when you're putting together your plan, because again, the cleaning provision area is your home base where you operate out of. So provisions, we break provisions into consumable supplies that you use one time and you get rid of, which might be paper and plastic products. We talk about equipment, which may be electrical, propane, or battery operated equipment. It's usually a substantial investment, and so we usually break that out on a 5-year investment. Then you go to have tools, which are handheld implements and devices that you are used in conjunction oftentimes with materials such as dust mop itself, and then the dust mop heads, or wet mops and wet mop heads. So understanding what are tools, what is equipment, and what are materials is important. Now, the thing here is we buy these things individually. And like I said, equipment is usually allocated on a 5-year term, but I'm going to tell you straight up that buying by price alone is not a good way to purchase your investments. Do a little bit of research, what works best, what lasts longest, and you might be surprised at cheap is not always best. I always talk about color coding. It's an incredible way of being efficient. When you're looking for equipment, or in this case, when you color code, you know where it's going to be applicable to. Red is going to be for disinfection, toilets and urinals. Yellow is going to be for restroom, other surfaces, mirrors and dispensers. Blue is going to be your generic one size fits all. And green is going to be for food service and food preparation. So these color codings can really help you save time by not having to look for what you're looking for if it all looks the same. So it also, the main important thing for color coding everything is to not cause cross-contamination within the environment. So we get into stocking provision vehicles and carts. This is an important thing. If you go to the account and you stock the cart before you go to work, you will eat up 15, 20 minutes getting the cart ready to go to work. It's better to stock the cart at the end of the shift and have it ready to go when you start in, because your energy is at its highest level at the beginning of your shift and reduces towards the end. So depending on what kind of carts you use, or what kind of how you get your provisions from point A to point B, you may have a mobile janitor closet, which is your cart in the picture. That's a good well-stocked cart. You may have a barrel instead, which has a skirt or around it that you can put stuff in. The whole thing is that cart is going to reduce steps, and everything in this is about reducing steps. Capacity to carry, restocking supplies, additional materials, required tools and equipment. You got to be able to carry all that stuff with you, especially if it's a big building. You got to be prepared. Ensure that the items are stocked and readily available. Extra PPE masks, always have PPE available. Now, when it comes to vehicles, if you run a lot of floor maintenance crews or a lot of carpet cleaning crews, then it's important to have that vehicle stocked, because that can take a lot longer to stock a vehicle. In fact, if you have a lot of people in a tight entryway to your facility, I used to have 24 crews, and I had a special person that his job was just loading up the vehicles and making sure that they were ready to go, so that when the crews got there, they could just jump in the van and they were off to the next account. So another thing in proficiency is how do you approach the cleaning process itself? So access. Do you have the access cards? Do you have the keys? Do you have the alarm codes? Do you have the dispenser keys? If you have to walk back to the janitor closet or the cleaning provision area to get any of those things, how much time are you wasting? It could be a significant amount of time just because you forgot to have the dispenser keys, especially if this was a restroom. As you do a common process, you turn on the lights, you go top to bottom, left to right, usually back to front, or in some cases in a clockwise direction, which is what this example is. If you do a clockwise direction around the perimeter of a small room, you would invariably catch the center of the room as well. If you expand that out to a suite or office of suites, you're going to follow another pattern. You're going to enter it. Some people might want to go all the way to the back of the area and work their way to the front. It's not as efficient as a clockwise or counterclockwise motion in which you're going in and you're peeling off. The small arrows are the small arrows. The large arrows are the main throughway through the area. So if you follow the path of the arrows, you will be more efficient and effective than if you just go in and start cleaning randomly, willy-nilly throughout it. So next, forgetting things, there's no empty trips here. You have to be sure that you have everything on your cart or everything you need to do that job. You want to save time, energy, and money. If this hallway were 500 feet, if you walked it 10 times, you would have walked a mile. So I have worked in buildings that have hallways that are a quarter of a mile or an eighth of a mile long. If you forget something, it could cost you a mile. How fast can you walk? 4 miles an hour? So that becomes extremely important as well. No empty trips. Take everything with you. Same thing when you're talking about a vehicular route. If you're going to have a vehicular route, you might want to plan that route out to be a loop route where you hit multiple locations and you do it in a loop to where you end up where you started out. If you've got just 2 or 3, maybe you go to the furthest location and you work your way back. And that might work out. Sometimes you might find that it's best to work from the closest to the job site to the end of the job site and then find the freeway back, because you might be doing back roads to get to those job sites. So you have to really look at how you plan your route work, whether it be in a building or whether it be a vehicular route work. Plan your work and work your plan. Next, we're going to talk about correcting a cleaning problem that's already there, or adjusting that cleaning situation. We don't always have it the way we want it. I live by the moniker of it's what the building needs to be a safe and habitable environment. Well, what if the money isn't there to pay for that? So then you have to kind of correct change. Keep in mind there are 2 things that you need to be aware of. Minor changes may not need confirmation, and major changes will require confirmation. So the minor changes might be slight variation in process or procedure, and when you're changing scope of work or frequencies of service, it might require a little bit more planning. So if you just adjust an hourly rate, if we look at 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, if you take that and you reduce it by 15 minutes, you're going to save 3% and 1.25 hours in that week. And you can look down the chart and see that at every iteration, you will save a little bit of time. At 30 minutes, you're going to save 6%. At 45 minutes, 9%. 1 hour, 13%, and 2 hours, 25%. But if you look at the hours you're saving on the end, that's where you're actually being more efficient by adjusting the hourly rate. Now, if you can't get the place clean by adjusting the hourly rate, don't adjust the hourly rate, because then you're going to fail the contract. So when we talk about changing frequency, the primary thing that changes frequency is the volume of traffic in that environment. So we want to be sure that the volume of traffic meets the needs. when we're talking about volume of traffic, maybe we spot vacuum with an upright vac, backpack vac, lobby sweeper. If you use a full vacuuming, you're going with an upright vac or a backpack vacuum, and you're doing every square inch, leaving a pattern wall to wall. The same is true about dust mopping. If you dust mop only, I say in restrooms, you have to do that thoroughly in restrooms, but in hallways or break rooms, you might be able to get away with spot mopping and dust mopping only, and you might just do a wet mopping once a week. So by adjusting the services, major adjustments require that the project manager has to be there. So potential adjustments might be reduce the service days, adjust the scope of work, adjust the frequencies, or centralize trash sliding. So when we adjust the work days, this is a big one. That's why we break the areas into common areas and office areas. If you adjust the work days, it adjusts the office areas alone. By changing it from 5 days of work to 3 days, you're going to reduce the service frequency from 260 to 156, initial 104 days. If drop it to 2 days, just the opposite, 104 days of service, 156 freed up. If you drop it to 1 day, you'll get 280 days. So again, on the side, you can see 3 days is 40%, 2 days is 60%, and 8 days or 1 day is 80%. So when we adjust this area and look at this chart, and we'll be wrapping up here real soon, this chart takes the 5 days a week of the office area and breaks it up into 5 days a week to 3 days a week in some areas, to 2 days a week in some areas, and 1 day a week in some areas. So by adjusting that frequency with the customer's approval, you can reduce that budget significantly. You can reduce the time allocation to the budget significantly to meet the customer's budget. The same thing with hard floor maintenance. You can look at these things and you will be able to see that you can make adjustments to these to quarterly or less frequent services. And finally, we could talk about centralizing locations for commercial trash and recycling. This is being done in a lot of different places. It's a cooperative kind of relationship with the people that occupy the building, and that they take their trash and recyclable to a common area and dump it there, and we don't have to do it at each and every desk. It's a huge impactor in reducing labor in the field. So the final slide is quality assurance, or the guidelines that we use to have a quality control. That's everything we use to have a quality product. Quality control is essentially the inspections. Quality improvement is going to happen if you have quality control and quality assurance and you monitor and manage those correctly. I'm going to hand it back to Jackson now. That's my presentation.
There you go. Great stuff, Stan. I mean, how's that for info for your time right there? That's about as dense as info as you can get for an hour, packed with some good stuff. We got some questions that have come in. If you are listening, folks, and you have questions, that little Q&A module that should be on the right, you can type your questions in there. If you want to take the next couple minutes and type something in there, we have a few we're going to get through right off the top here. Lacey has a couple. I'm glad she asked this because I had a similar question when you were talking about it, Stan. She says that she runs into a lot of businesses that don't have a map for color coding and planning stuff out. So how would you navigate that if you just show up and you're wanting to put a map together? Do you do it yourself? Do you pull that from somewhere? How would you handle that, Stan?
I handle it by, sometimes you have very simplified maps. You have no maps at all. Then you can go all the way to really detailed maps. Every building, almost every building, other than a few smaller ones, are required to show an emergency evacuation route. And that is the most rudimentary map you can get. And you can get those. They have to have them. But usually, if you ask them for floor plans, oftentimes they will have them. If they don't, they have to have that emergency exit thing, and that will work to help you, and you can draw inside that. Or if you want to get creative, you can make your own, but I wouldn't recommend that.
It depends on your map making skills. The She also asks, how do you handle when the business doesn't have a provisioning area for you guys to use? She says a lot of job sites don't have anything for the that's set aside for the janitorial staff. What would you? Is that part of the conversations? Like this is a must do. How do you approach that?
It's very hard to say it's a must do. Specifically, when we're talking about older buildings, you're going to have the closet. You're going to have that deep sink, or that's not so deep, or the floor sink, or whatever. And usually, this came about because me and two other guys created a white paper on clean provision areas, and how the custodial closet is no longer consistent with how we clean buildings. And so Mark Warner and Todd, I can't think of his last name right now, and I went together. We built this white paper on for architects on the need to build cleaning provision areas. In older buildings, it doesn't exist, but sometimes you can ask for an unoccupied space within a building, or an office space within a building. It doesn't give you the deep sink, but if you ask for it, you're going to need it. If you don't make notice of it in the beginning, it won't ever get addressed. So in older buildings, it's very difficult to find anything bigger than a closet. But going forward, when you guys talk to your potential customer, tell them the value. Take that slide and tell them the value of why you need a bigger area. And that's about all you can do, because you can't reconfigure the building.
Lacey, I also see your question there about the classes of hard flooring again. If you scroll back up to that slide earlier, you should be able to actually download the PDF, and you can expand that graphic on there. But I can see why you're asking. It's when you just kind of look at it, that fifth and sixth class of hardwood flooring is cut off a little bit. So if you have problems, we're going to email the PDF to you. If you have any issues, feel free to reach out to me, and I can get you that graphic. I
can do a plug if you want a hard floor maintenance class. I teach hard floor maintenance for the ISSA and the IICRC, and I have done some stuff for you guys as well. So if you're interested in taking classes in hard floor maintenance or carpet cleaning or even janitorial, drop me a line, and we'll see what we can do to help you out.
Yeah, we're always looking for what do you guys want to know about? So definitely let us know that kind of stuff. This one other question here that's Aaron sent in, pretty interesting. Have you ever used a cleaning method that's a cross between the zone and the team cleaning? I'd imagine there's probably quite a bit of scenarios where you have to kind of do a hybrid approach to different stuff. But do you see efficiencies in approaching it that kind of way? Does it result in cost savings with tools or equipment? How do you suggest sort of managing, like if there is maybe not a perfect approach, zone or team, when do you decide to like combine? What would you do there?
There are actually 6 cleaning methods that are outlined. I just put up the 3 most popular methods, but to your point, each I represent the building, and I tell people that they don't really get it, but the building is the primary principle of all of this. The building is receiving the treatment. So what does the building need to be? A safe and habitable environment? And then how do you divvy that up? Sometimes you do have to get creative. Sometimes you do have hybrids. Sometimes you do have staggering times. The day porter can handle some of this stuff, and then the night shift handles other stuff. So there are a number of different ways. There's no one size fits all when it comes to the building. Each building is like each person in the world. We all have, we may be the same, we may be a biped, but we're all a little bit different. Apply the same thought process to buildings, because they are, literally.
There you go. What does the building need? That's one of the things that really stuck with me, was cleaning for what the building needs. It's a great way to put it. I think that's all the questions that we have. Yep. How do we get a copy of the presentation? You can download that there should be a content module down at the bottom right somewhere on your screen. You could download the PDF there. I believe we'll also be emailing it to you, so you can just get it directly in your inbox at some point today, I would assume. And again, if that doesn't show up, you don't get it for whatever reason, reach out to any of us here at Trade Press. Let us know. We'll be happy to help you out. Again, Stan, thank you for taking the time today. Attendees, thank you guys for taking the time to jump on today. It's been awesome to see so many people on. This whole thing was recorded. If you want to revisit it at any point, it'll be on cleanlink.com archived. Make sure to get your CEU certificate. You can access that now clicking on the View certificate in that Earn certification module. That'll be on the right. Also, make sure to get signed up for parts 2 and 3 of this series. As you can see, there's plenty of good info, and we're just getting started. Really, that registration link will be in the related content module as well. So that little area should be a great resource for you if you have any questions about that kind of stuff. Again, if not, cleanlink.com, great place to find that stuff. Email us. We're all happy to help you. Again, appreciate you guys taking the time. July 9th will be the part 2 of the series, and that will be focusing on labor strategies. This should be very interesting. Really, really kind of get prepped for what 2025 might have in store. So again, thank you. That'll wrap us up. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you at the next one.